Witness what it's like to be a non-binary pregnant person and then a parent. Hello and welcome back to I'm the Zaddy. Thank you for bearing with me as I took a little break as I was absolutely exhausted. I hope you are well and enjoying the summer so far. This week's episode is about how life-changing pregnancy really is, but not just about bringing a child into the world, but all the mundane, repetitive things that make pregnancy kind of boring. People often get caught up in talking about the physical work of growing a baby. But in this episode, I talk about the mental load, what it really takes from you to keep moving forwards in what feels like a never-ending process. If I'm totally honest, I expected pregnancy to be more dramatic, to feel the huge milestones and to have those big emotional moments, to constantly feel excited. But my brain has become more like a task manager, running on nearly empty. Yet the biggest part, the birth, is yet to come. Pregnancy has mostly felt like remembering to eat every 2 hours and wondering if this new pain is normal. Adapting to every change and every pivot and every new feeling. And also accepting what the new next thing might be. And also not always feeling excited and not always feeling the weight of the milestones in the present moment, but quietly accepting the pains and the aches and the pulls that mean our baby is with us. Pregnancy has quietly and gently occupied my brain. And now I wake up in the morning and try to recollect whether I felt them during the night. And I instantly wonder when I will feel them next. And honestly, they've become quite lazy in the morning. A new pattern of behaviour, and that's okay. All day I mentally take note of how many times I feel them and how many times they've moved and whether it's less or more than the normal average day. I think about them constantly. Am I eating enough? Are my sugars okay? I notice the feeling of my pelvis, where the little movements are and what that means for their position and whether they're nearly ready to exit my body. I check in with my body all the time. Am I tired, hungry, or just thirsty? And the attunement is real. It's such a valuable skill to hone because being self-aware is one thing and being aware of your baby is another. But attunement to me is being aware of our baby and my body in a whole different way. It means noticing all the movements and reacting to them and talking to them, noticing when I feel overwhelmed or exhausted and taking action to even that out. Pregnancy has definitely improved my attunement skill. There has, in parts, been a lot more anxiety, but I trust my body and I trust it to tell me when something is wrong or when something needs checking, and hopefully when labour arrives and the whole process of birthing our child becomes real, I'll know exactly what to do. My internal dialogue has been interesting because these last couple of weeks I have nested more and my inner voice wants to prepare and be ready for that next phase. But at the same time, I've been enjoying time with my wife, even if we have been doing jobs. I have probably done some things I shouldn't be doing, like tending to our allotment and lifting heavier things, until my wife tells me off, that is. But I have only done what I have felt comfortable with, and I seem to be in a cycle of busier days when I have more energy, followed by 1 or 2 days where I'm a little bit more relaxed and focused on resting and sleeping and eating. Sleep hasn't been great the last couple of weeks as I have got bigger, my hands are still swollen and numb, and the acid reflux keeps me on my toes because sometimes it wakes me up and I feel quite sick, and other days it's non-existent. So I kind of just have to go with it. During one of our antenatal classes, they talked about perineum massage. And we have been doing that based on the logic that it can't hurt. It's basically to help me not tear during labour. We have wondered how many others are doing this. And ultimately, it doesn't matter because we are. And in the end, I'll let you know whether it helped or not. The other thing that we have been focused on is collecting colostrum. Now, anyone who has ever tried this, hats off to you. We had a chat about it before I got to 37 weeks, and I said yes, and that I want to give it a go and see whether we could actually do it. Because with my diagnosis of gestational diabetes, it's helpful to have a few colostrum syringes ready to help the baby through. Because those first couple of days, their sugars might be all over the place, which means that the colostrum could really help balance them out. So we got to 37 weeks and we tried. And the first time, maybe we got like half a syringe. The syringes are only 1 ml, but we were told that 1 ml is generally a feed for a newborn because their stomachs are so tiny. Then the second day, we got a full syringe. And every day since that, we've had a full one again. So now we've got a little stash in the freezer ready for them for when they get here. It's magical stuff. And according to the midwives up and down the country, you can feed them with it, you can use it on their cradle cap, you can put it in creams, help them with their rashes or their dry skin, or just put it in their bath. Apparently it lasts up to about 6 months in the freezer. It's brilliant. It's just a strange thing to do at the end of the day after you've showered, to sit down and essentially milk your own boobs for the liquid gold that people talk about. But I can see the benefits, which is why I wanted to try, and thankfully we've been successful. But I gotta tell you, milking my boobs as a non-binary person is weird, because before getting pregnant, I mostly ignored them and tried to reduce their size and their presence on my body. And now it's the opposite. I'm trying to get the most out of them to be useful for our baby. And that 180 has been truly fascinating and really digs into that place where I really do think of my body as more of a vessel to get our child here safely than as something that represents femininity and womanhood. During pregnancy, I have Googled and ChatGPT'd everything you can imagine, from itchy nipples to electric crotch and to home induction methods. And mostly it was helpful, but even from just the point of view of having multiple opinions and thoughts and pieces of research for me to read, I always look up something in several places to make sure I'm not being led down a path of disillusionment. And I'm sure, like many, many others, I have about 60 to 80 tabs open in my Google Chrome at any one point. A mixture of research, baby clothes, products, advice, Reddit, and what having a baby actually means in real life. Of course, I read books and listened to podcasts, as I mentioned before. But you always get those late night pings where questions need answering, and only Google can suffice. And even then, that rabbit hole can get big and difficult to get out of. And most of the time, what I'm actually Googling is stuff I've already learned or things that I've Googled before. But I need that instant reassurance in that moment about something I've had a thought about. It's something I've already had my mind made up about. And I'm questioning it again to make sure I know exactly what I want and exactly when I will need it. Not because it's new or no one has talked to me about it, but because I need that reassurance. I'm constantly looking for whatever control I can gain in a really uncontrollable situation. And all of that takes up mental space I sometimes do not have. And that's when my wife steps in and says, I got this. Sit down, eat a snack, let me sort it. But as I get closer to our child's birth, the plan feels more and more real. Now, because of the gestational diabetes, we've had to have a chat with the birth centre and talk to 2 separate consultants about plans. The most recent consultant suggested I have a stretch and sweep in week 39 and set an induction date for week 41. as they don't want me to go over that. But still, the biggest thing I'm trying to do is trust my body, as I mentioned earlier. And I do, but it does feel like a constant battle. I have been feeling the Braxton Hicks and the electric crotch and the pelvic pressure that comes with this period of time. And I know my body pretty well at this point. I just need to trust it. But the closer the time gets, the more worried I get. Because I know I should stay relaxed and rested to be in the best state possible for labour. But that's easier said than done. I would say that speaking to consultants makes me uncomfortable, as I always feel like they lean more towards their numbers and their bottom line than towards me as a person. But the need to make a positive decision for our baby and my body weighs heavy. It is a difficult decision to make to ensure that they are safe, but also to respect my body as much as possible. I never wanted an induction, and I never really wanted a stretch and sweep. But the stretch and sweep would mean that I could still potentially go ahead with the most natural birth that I want and see for our child coming into the world. But if it lands that I have to have a formal induction, then so be it. Ultimately, it's about their safety and health as well as mine. Before pregnancy, I only really noticed my body when it felt uncomfortable. If a bra rubbed, if it felt bloated, or if I felt particularly feminine in a way that didn't sit comfortable for me. Mostly, I had learnt how to manage it. I knew what clothes gave me gender euphoria, and I had systems for dealing with periods and my boobs. Pregnancy has definitely made me more aware of my body and how it feels, how the hormones affect me, and how my inner systems work. And I don't think that will ever go back to the way it was before. I think I will always be aware of it in this way, or at least for some time to come. I will keep you updated on that because I'm fascinated by the way that it has affected me in a non-binary way. And maybe that's what I've learned most from pregnancy. Something can completely change your life while somehow every day still looks almost the same. The strange thing about pregnancy is that it's the biggest thing that's ever happened to me. And it's mostly happened whilst I'm sat on the sofa or doing something really mundane. I have grown organs and bones, an entire nervous system, whilst also doing the washing and putting clothes away and working and talking and watching Netflix. Because life doesn't stop, and it doesn't stop even in the third trimester when the pelvic pressure is real and the Braxton Hicks are coming at all sorts of times. It just quietly becomes extraordinary. And I think you can become completely consumed by how extraordinary it is, or completely exhausted by the fact that you are expected to carry on as normal. I honestly thought pregnancy would feel more feminine, but it's actually felt more human. In some ways, I have felt more connected to things, but it's actually felt really grounding and fascinating to watch, as though I'm a third party in this whole thing. Watching them grow and change my body has been such a weird experience. Collecting those tiny syringes of colostrum and feeling them headbutt my pelvis is something I will never forget. But does it make me feel like a woman? No, it doesn't. Because I am not. And I am not experiencing this as a woman. I am a person. And this experience has taught me about humanity and how incredibly lucky I am to be born in the body I was and to be able to give my wife and me this gift of parenthood. It hasn't made me feel closer to other pregnant people. It's made me feel quite different from them. It's made me feel like a different breed altogether. And not because the care that I've received doesn't fit, but because I don't. It's given me the shared physical experience of being pregnant, but not a shared identity of a pregnant person. And that's two very different things. And I'm still kind of working out how to define them. The latest consultant appointment had me in a spin, as she'd laded me all the way through until my partner helpfully pointed out that I'm non-binary. She caught it, and I didn't. And I thanked her later for that. I was already on the defensive in that appointment, as I felt she was pushing me to book an induction, even if she did label it as a line in the sand based on health and safety for me and the baby. And I can understand it, because for me, a person with gestational diabetes, very low risk I might add, it does still put the placenta at risk of deteriorating after 40 weeks, which means that the baby wouldn't be getting everything that they need. I have done that research and I understand it, but it felt hard to take from the consultant because, like I said, I suddenly felt like a number to her and backed into a corner. It wasn't until my wife made it logical to me that it felt I was doing the right thing by putting that line in the sand, even if I needed to remove it later. Something the consultant did say was that I could refuse it at that point if I wanted to, and would be able to sort something else out. So it doesn't mean it's going to happen. I just want the baby to get here safe. I've definitely aligned myself more with midwives and midwife-led care than consultant and obstetric care because of the pregnancy experience. But the flip side of this experience is that we had our last antenatal class and it was awesome. And we got there a little before the class started, but most people were already there. For once, we weren't late, but we were just about on time. But we walked in and one of the midwives says, here you are. We have a favour to ask you. And we retorted, we have a favour to ask you. So we all laughed and assumed that we would chat at the end. And then we sat and went through the class. And it was about how to care for your newborn, which was a really nice class to end on. So we got to the end of the class and we waited around for everyone to leave, because everybody talks to the midwives before they leave, so we were kind of hanging around. Then the midwife that spoke to us at the start came over and said, first of all, we want to apologise. And I was stood there a little bit in shock, like, what were you apologising for? What's happened? What's gone on? She continued by saying that they'd been on some training for trans and non-binary visibility, and that they'd read in my notes that I'm non-binary and realised that the language that they were using wasn't inclusive. The weird thing was that through that class, I'd noticed the language change, but hadn't really put it together. I was astounded, and to be quite honest, I felt really seen. Like, wow, something is happening within the NHS that's really positive. It was really quite something. I thanked her and said, that's okay, I appreciate it. She then went on to ask my wife and me if we would share photographs with them after the birth of our child to use in their literature to represent same-sex couples. Now, being labelled as a same-sex couple always makes me feel a bit odd, because yes, it's technically true, but it makes me feel weird. My thoughts were that I would very much like people to see themselves in these classes and the NHS literature, because we haven't, and that needs to change. So we felt honoured, and we said yes, that we will see what we can get. And in the car afterwards, we talked about it, and we said we would like to do it, but not to have our child's face in the photos. That's something else we'll talk about in a later podcast. It felt big to be asked to be the representation we were missing in this space we've become a part of. It means something. Being able to represent that for people like me felt huge. I expected pregnancy to teach me something about gender, to teach me how I felt about myself and everybody else's view of gender. Instead, it's taught me something about being human, the realities of being pregnant, the uncertainties and the challenges it places in front of you to overcome, the hard questions to answer when you know the answer but it's uncomfortable and doesn't quite sit right. But you have to balance the baby's health and your own. It's complicated. All the tiny decisions that you make mean something, and I am incredibly grateful to have been on this journey. Now, for the next part, the giving birth part, which is literally any time now, hopefully. So if you want to share any of your thoughts and feelings about this episode, then please do. You can email me at getintouch@imthezaddy.com or DM me on Instagram at imthezaddy.pod. Thank you for listening. I hope you join me next time. Peace.